Hey gang, how are you guys doing today? I'm very excited. It's a gorgeous Monday afternoon, like middle fall afternoon here in Brooklyn, New York, or wherever you are. I hope it's gorgeous and nice. Very excited for you guys to be here. Of course, I have to shout out the person that composed that bop that you just listened to, the one, the only Aaron Robertson. Thank you so much. If you want to tweet at him, follow him, all that stuff. If you want music from him, it's a good deal, and his music's good. And we'll keep it fun. We keep it loosey goosey, all that good stuff here. On Monday, as you see, today is a miscellaneous Monday, which means today we're gonna have a couple different segments, and I'm gonna talk to a friend who I'll bring out very shortly, and about something I find very, very fascinating. And we're gonna talk about other things too, because that's just the way things are. But if you like what you see, press the thumbs up button below. If you're able to do that on YouTube, like it also on Facebook, heart it, all that stuff. Share it, subscribe, everything. Every little thing helps. Keeps the show running. Especially, furloughed actor whose job doesn't know when it's coming back, but been applying to every job under the sun that he can do. Yeah. Woo! 3 undergraduate diplomas in theater. Okay. But yeah, so let's get started with the show. As you know, today's Miscellaneous Monday, which means that we have a whole bunch of things happening today. Last week, I had my friend Michael J. Clark talking about Ted Lasso, and today for our Let's Chat segment, I got a friend of mine that I met like a little over a month ago. Something I think is really fascinating, really cool, very funny, and some of that I'm very intrigued to talk to you today about something that's not pop culture at all, but can be. But it doesn't matter because pop culture is whatever, and this is not a pop culture show; it's just a show. The one, the only, my friend Lane. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Thanks for being on. I had no idea what your last name is, so I couldn't actually say Lane. I just said Lane.
Allen is my last name.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So Lane
uh,
Allen.
so how's your day going?
It's good. It's good. I've been applying to schools all day this morning, so that's always very fun, very invigorating. But yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
So you want to come on here and talk about something that I find pretty fascinating, and you let's I'll have you bring it up because it
Yeah.
was your idea to talk about.
So yeah, I saw that you tweeted about something about pop culture, and the more that I was thinking about it, so for people that don't know, I'm almost done with my master's degree in forensic psychology.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's the study of criminals essentially and the justice system, kind of the mix between the two. And one of the things that I've talked about in my classes, along with my professors, is the concept or the term, psychopaths, whereas or sociopaths, psychopathy, that whole thing. And I was thinking about possibly talking about, psychopathy in pop culture and in the media, and how that word is kind of thrown around a lot, the portrayals that are in the media, and whether or not kind of I think it's accurate.
Right. Because I know that a lot of people like that write scripts or like greenlight shows or work on shows. They tend to get confused with psychopath and sociopath.
Hmm.
Um, what's like the biggest difference?
So I'm actually not even really going to give an answer, which is annoying because it really depends on the person that you
Okay.
ask. I've had a lot of different professors. I know a lot of people that are studying psychopathy and everything like that. In my personal opinion, sociopathy, which is known also as someone that's a sociopath, that's also known as something called antisocial personality disorder, which is in the DSM, which is my Bible essentially, which is
I
where
used so I took an abnormal psychology class in college
Mhm.
and loved it. And like the DSM I even read back then too.
Yeah. It's super, super cool. And so someone can be diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, and it's in the personality disorder section under cluster B, which is known as the dramatic and erratic section, which is also with narcissistic personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, and borderline personality disorder. But that's basically so when someone says a sociopath, they're actually referring to antisocial personality disorder, right? And that term, when people think of antisocial, what do they think of?
Like the person that's like closed off, doesn't want to talk
Yeah.
to anyone.
Yeah, people think of like, oh, I'm not shy, but like, no, it just means that like they don't really have empathy. They're very impulsive. They're very, driven by their emotions. They're not very logic focused.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would say that the main difference is that is a personality disorder, whereas psychopathy is technically not in our diagnostic manual, but you still can be assessed to see if you are going to be, or not going to be, excuse me, if you are a psychopath on something that's called the Psychopathy Checklist Revised. And that is an assessment tool that forensic practitioners use, whether that's in like prison or if they're evaluating somebody. So you actually can be evaluated to be diagnosed as a psychopath, but it wouldn't be in our manual, if that makes sense.
Yes, I actually read a book about that like 8 years ago
Mm-hmm.
by John Watson, the Psychopath Test.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it was like I remember they were talking about like This American Life, I believe. I'm not sure,
Mm-hmm.
but I was like listening to them like this is really fascinating. I bought the book and I devoured it.
Yeah, it's super it's a crazy thing to kind of wrap your head around, learning about somebody that doesn't really care about anybody else besides themselves. And the term that I like to use a lot when describing a psychopath to someone is that they believe that life is a game and I'm going to get you before you get me first. That's kind
Okay,
of how they are. So if I was going to answer the question of what's the difference between them, antisocial personality disorder, um, so personality disorders they're intense. It definitely is a big part of their life, but actually there's no medication necessarily for personality disorders, and it's more of just like I just was saying, kind of personality. A lot of it has to do with the environment that they were raised in, and a lot of it is not necessarily biological. There's certainly a biological component of it, but compared to other mental illnesses, such as a psychotic disorder or a mood disorder like bipolar, it's not as a genetic disorder as other ones, but more of a just personality component by what you're raised with. Whereas psychopathy is definitely more of a genetic component. So psychopaths typically have what's called an underdeveloped amygdala, which is the emotion in your brain, what triggers your emotion. So
uh-huh.
psychopaths, it's kind of more born that way. Antisocial is a little bit more raised that way, is what I would say.
Okay, that makes total sense. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and so I kind of wanted to also talk about how what they're portrayed as in the media. So, can you think of any like psychopaths in any movies or TV shows that you can think of?
I mean, I love a good horror movie, so I
Mm-hmm.
like, especially recently, like, I mean, one of the easiest ones to think of that is a human is Michael Myers.
Uh huh. Yeah.
Uh, I mean, and he did experience some bad things as a kid, which
Mm-hmm.
is what triggered everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think Norman Bates.
Norm, yeah, actually, that's an interesting one. That's a very interesting one. People think of him as a psychopath, which I understand why people think that way because it's in the movie Psycho, first of all. And he obviously has an issue, but he actually would have something known as dissociative identity disorder. Uh
Right.
yes, which is not psychopathy, but people think that because people must think, "Oh, he doesn't have emotions, he doesn't care about, he's crazy," which is actually not the case. It's actually a totally different disorder.
Yeah.
So is interesting. I think I would say that one of the main myths about psychopaths in the media and that people think of a psychopath, they usually think of homicidal offenders, right? So someone
Right.
like that kills people. You name two people that have killed people, and not as much of normal quote unquote psychopaths, or as I like to call them, kind of the white collar psychopaths.
Okay.
So there are psychopaths in the world that are called white collar ones or successful psychopaths, and those are people that have technically been successful in society, as in have not been arrested, don't have any criminal history, which is actually very fascinating because we don't actually know a lot about them, because what we study about psychopaths in my field are people that have been caught and have been in prison and actually will talk to us,
Right.
whereas psychopaths that are just walking around the world and are on Wall Street or on any big business, they're not gonna get caught. They're not going to talk to us or anything. So it's very, very interesting. And so they've done studies. Actually, it was one secret, quote unquote, study that they had where people were given the surveys and it was testing to see if they had any psychopathic traits, but they didn't
Oh, that's cool.
know that that's what they were looking at.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's actually a lot of people that would be considered a psychopath if they were evaluated that have never killed anybody, have never actually hurt anybody before, have never actually, or got caught, done anything wrong that we know of, which I feel like a lot of people don't really know. They just think of them as the crazy killers, and that's just not.
I mean, it
how
makes me
is.
think of the movie American Psycho.
Yeah,
Like
I was
completely.
literally just thinking about that.
Because like at the end of the movie you find out it's all like a dream.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry, spoiler alert for a movie that's 20 years old, but whatever. But like, yeah, it's the idea of like this is a white collar guy who, in theory, well, no, he's. I mean, his mind, he kills a lot of women and tortures people. Yeah, but like my brain goes like the business card scene.
Yeah.
When they're all talking about like the different kinds of white that it is. They're like, oh, this is sand tooth or whatever.
Yeah, it's a good. He's a good example of a psychopath, a white collar psychopath. If you ignored the part where he killed people, in his head, but
right.
If you take out the murder, that's a great example of actually of a pretty accurate psychopath that.
I just started really finding that our friend Jacob Jones just said, "Watch while I work," which is funny because there was an psychopath. I'm not saying Jacob's a psychopath. Love the guy.
So weird. Him and I were just talking about something like that. I'm not going to expose him, but yeah, he needs to be lowered down a peg if he's still listening to this.
I mean, he is someone I'm actually cheering for in Sequester season 4. So, and he knows that was his whole bird arm thing.
But another myth that I actually wanted to bring up was that a lot of people would call psychopaths, understandably as well, they would call them psychos, right? They would call them psychotic. And that also is not true. So what psychotic people do when you are psychotic, there's actually psychotic disorders, right? Like schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder. Those are actual psychotic disorders. And when you are psychotic or going through a psychotic episode, psychotic break, anything like that, what that means is that you have a distorted sense of reality. That's what you would call it. It means that what you think is going on is not actually true. So, for example, have you ever heard of I think it's called the Sacramento vampire? Have you ever heard of him? He's a serial killer.
No, I haven't.
He was a weird. But it was actually sad because he actually was psychotic. He truly believed that he had this thing called the soap dish theory. And what it was is if he picked up a bar of soap on the counter and if it was wet underneath it, that means that his blood was poisoned and was going to turn to powder, and the only way that he could save himself and not die was to drink the blood of other people and kill them. But if it was dry underneath the soap when he picked it up, then it was fine.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's what he thought. And that is truly, truly what he thought. He was not making that up at all. Right. When people talk to him, if you were to talk to him, he would say things that did not make logical sense. So he truly was psychotic and had an actual psychotic disorder, whereas psychopaths, they know the difference between right and wrong. They definitely know what's up. They don't have it can be distorted in the sense where they are very narcissistic and they think that they're so much better, but that's not textbook definition of distorted, Yeah. Yeah, it's not a truly thing. Like if they were a psychopath, actually a serial killer who is a psychopath 100%, but was not psychotic, that tried to use that as a insanity defense. Do you have any guesses? There's 2 I'm thinking of. Actually 3.
Was it Dahmer?
Yes, it was Dahmer. Yeah. He is one of them. Yeah. And John Wayne Gacy also tried to
I was thinking Gacy, but I wasn't sure.
Also, Gacy tried to say that he had multiple personality disorder and that when he killed his victims, he had a different personality. And that was very, very bad on his lawyer's part because he has zero. If you have multiple personality disorder, you have evidence of that in your history. Like, people know about it, is very, very, very clear. There's a lot of trauma that was involved. None of that was actually true, and so that was
It's not just
unsuccessful.
like onset. It's not like
Exactly. It doesn't just happen. And so he tried to, when he was talking to the police investigators, he tried to like, I think it was, he tried to like switch personalities, if I'm not mistaken, in front of them. And they were like, what are you doing? And so so he was, that was a fail. Same with Dahmer. They had people in Dahmer's case where he worked, the chocolate factory that he worked at, workers coming up and on the stand and being like, yeah, he seemed very competent. Like, he knew what he was doing. He had conversations with people, normal conversations, very, very normal looking guy, normal sounding. Whereas if you were to talk to the Vampire of Sacramento, Richard Chase, which I just said, he would talk about how UFOs are going to stalk his brain and that they were like, it doesn't make sense. And
it's
so,
very different. Yeah.
yes, so you can tell pretty quickly if somebody is actually psychotic and is not mentally stable versus a psychopath. So that's another example that I had in my head.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's just I love learning about how the brain works and like what triggers like serial killers and people like that. They've always been stuck with true crime and horror.
Yeah. It's very interesting why we as a society have such a fascination with serial killers and with true crime. My professor, where I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm doing research right now on incels.
Yeah, you told me that. Yeah.
Incels.
Which that's a
God,
love
them. But my professor actually came in and roasted our whole class, where he was like, you can name 3 to 5 serial killers right now off the top of your head. And we all did, obviously. And he goes, okay, name 3 people that have won a Nobel Peace Prize.
Exactly.
And we were like, and he's like, that is insane, because he's like, the serial killers haven't done anything for society. Like, they didn't contribute anything besides fear and fascination, whereas Nobel Peace Prize are people that have
like made the world better.
Yeah, they're like, I built a rocket. And Jeffrey Dahmer's like, I killed a lot of people. And we're like, we want that guy. We want to learn more about him. Not the rocket, not actually anything that's like good for society, which is very interesting how us as a society want to figure that out, Because it's because we can't understand it. We don't understand, so we want to learn more about it, which is so normal, actually.
I just went to a Nobel Peace Prize Wikipedia page to see people that would recognize, like, oh yeah, they're like world leaders and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Cool. Anything else you want to add on this before?
I think the only other thing that I would think of is that a little bit what we talked about earlier, but just that people think that psychopaths, you wouldn't really like them when you first talk to them or meet them, but oftentimes they're actually very, very nice. You don't expect them to be the Hannibal Lecter that society portrays it in the media, the guy with the creepy mask that's being wheeled into prison. That is not all times the case. I've talked to 3 psychopaths before. And once I was helping evaluate and administer everything like that, of course I realized what was going on, and I knew that going into it. But if I didn't have my my assessment stuff with me, and if I wasn't in my work mode and everything like that, there's one in particular I genuinely liked, which is very weird because he did very, very bad things, like literally killed people. But you kind of forget that for a little bit and start to talk to them as a normal person. I have a professor that I'm with right now who's a teacher for one of my classes. She's brilliant, has written so many books I don't even understand, and she worked very close with Dennis Rader, if you know who that is.
I know the name, but I don't know. Like I know the name, but I don't know what the name is.
BTK killer.
Thank you.
Yeah. He was arrested in 2005, and she actually helped write his autobiography. So
Oh,
she's known him for about 10 years, I think it has been. Yeah, about 10 to 12 years. And she's still in close contact with him for obviously research purposes. But I love this story. And I'll end with this. She was telling us the story about how you want to build some type of rapport with them when you're, or anybody, whether that be a patient, or a client that you have. You want to start off with some light things before you just go into, deep stuff
yeah.
about their life and their trauma. And when she visited him in the prison, they were playing chess. And he's like, "Do you know how to play chess?" And she's like, "Yeah, like I know how to play chess." And then he was like, "Okay, but like don't cheat." And she was like, "Okay." And he's like, "Yeah, like cheating's wrong, so don't do that." And I think that that's just a great example of,
That's really fascinating. That guy
isn't it?
murdered people
I'm like,
is
you killed
anti-cheating.
11 people. And he was just like, he's like, "Yeah, but like don't do that. Like it's pretty shitty if you cheat."
Killing is cool, but cheating is
Chess
bad.
moves, that's where I crossed the line. I can't do that anymore.
I mean, I go with L shape,
Exactly. But yeah, it does show their own distorted reality, but not a actual legal or medical distorted reality. It's kind of their own distorted reality that they live in.
Well, thank you for coming on today.
Of course.
I'm
Thank
gonna
you for
bring up
having
your
me.
information to follow on Twitter. Patty_Lane. A lot of really great tweets. She's someone that you want to see around. Of course, I'm not bringing up too much the silly thing that happened in Amnesty this weekend, but it's pretty funny, and
Oh,
I
Lord.
understand what happened on your end. So
Yeah.
yeah, without ruining the spoiler, I guess. But whatever.
Say a little bit about it? Is that what you're asking?
Oh no! I was
Okay.
saying that people will see it online.
Okay, I was like, oh gosh, because I can't
Because I
relive
know
that
you're
again.
acting that like every time.
Oh my gosh, I still laugh at it. So yeah, go check out
It's
my
very
Twitter
funny.
if you want to see me totally embarrass myself in front of a lot of people now.
It's it's because like I mean that's what I do all my life.
Yeah, seriously.
That's what I do,
Half
and that's what I'll be
embarrassing,
doing
half just
very
funny.
shortly after you leave. So
Yeah.
yeah, but thank you so much for coming on today. I can't wait to talk
Awesome.
to you later, and have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll see you. Bye.
Yeah. All right, so thank you, Lane. That I learned a lot there. That was all really cool. That's one of the things I like about this version of my Monday show, where we can actually learn about things in the world. If you have something you want to show, talk about, or whatever, and have an audience live, this is a great place to do it. But now on to our next segment, because I wanted to do this because I always like doing this now. Mark, thoughts. So I recently, for the last few weeks, melatonin's been how I've been able to fall asleep. That's the best way to put it. And I've been groggy until about 4 p.m. every day, just because I go to bed about 4:30 on melatonin. I wake up around 1, and then I bop around, apply for jobs, go stir crazy, play computer games, play Among Us, whatever. And then I call a friend and I go for a walk, or I do the show and then I call a friend and go for a walk, something like that. And today, since I actually had real energy, I was up out of bed before noon, which is actually very big for me, considering I literally, there was like I'd say like I did like a whole half bottle of my melatonin in a month, which is a lot of melatonin. And today is such a gorgeous fucking day in Brooklyn that I decided to do my long 2-mile walk early. Part of the reason was because I'm going to show you guys this photo that I took in Prospect Park earlier today. How unbelievably gorgeous it is today. Just look at that. Like, you can just see how stunning it is in the city and how beautiful it is in the city. And you just get like, you get to see a few people around, can zoom in. And what's also fascinating is over here, this arch, that's been closed the whole time that I've lived in Brooklyn. I lived in Brooklyn since 2015, And I've been doing that Prospect Park walk, I'd say on and off for about 5 or 6 years. Just going to the park, doing like a big loop and walking back. It's about a 2 mile walk. It's actually pretty good. But there's always been there's always one arch into a long meadow, and I do a long like 1 mile walk and then out. But one of the cool things about Prospect Park is that it is the way they wanted Central Park to be. Like Central Park was basically the test park for Prospect Park. Prospect Park is like the idealized version of Central Park, which I find very fascinating. And it's just gorgeous. It's just a beautiful, sprawling park that's about 550 acres of just awesomeness in like the whole middle part of Brooklyn. And it just makes you so happy and feels so warm and being like, oh my God, I'm with nature. And it feels so great. But there's this arch that's the actual oldest arch in Prospect Park. It's called the Endale Arch, I believe. Yeah, the Endale Arch. And it was built in the 1890s. And the whole time I lived in Brooklyn, it's been closed off until this past weekend when they actually opened up it to be walked through again. And I just want to show you guys how gorgeous it looks. I didn't take any photos inside of it. Let me see if there's any other bigger photos. But like this is what you see when you're walking through it from the park into the outside part of the park, and you just walk through it, just like this very cool vibe, and like it apparently is restored to how it's supposed to be back then, which makes sense why it's restoration. But like if you see right here, this little like stones and it's a lot of very cool like wood. And if you scroll down this article that AM New York did, you'll see like they still have this like the crafting of it is still like the same, and it's just still stunning. It's beautiful, and it makes you so happy like to be able to live in a city like this. And if you're able to come to Prospect Park for the first time in 6 years, that archway is open. Of course, social distance and be smart, wear a mask and all that great stuff, but please do that. And it is so stunning. It is so beautiful. And like, it's so fascinating because the Meadow Arch, which is the arch that's closer to me, is very long, very long. Like it's like twice the length of that arch. And it's very dark. Like at 5 p.m. now, it's dark. It's pitch black there. I have to you see like the natural light on both sides. But it was just so beautiful. Like, because I feel like as a person who lives in New York, you don't always get to experience New York the way that it could be, the way it should be, the way people want it to be. And it felt really nice to have another way in and out of the park that I've never been able to like walk through. And it was so cool walking out of that arch, and like you have a little bit of a path back to Grand Way Plaza. And when you get there, you're just like, oh, I'm back, but it's on the other side of the other arch, and it's just a thing where you just think of things and you're like, man, I'm just so thankful. Like, I'm able to live in the best city in the world and enjoy the architecture that people created hundreds of years ago. Like I imagine like my grandparents, when they lived in Flatbush, possibly walked through that arch. That's pretty fucking cool to me. I know my grandpa used to walk down Brooklyn Bridge, and I remember that, like, and it was just, I felt that like the one time I walked across Brooklyn Bridge, and I want to do that again. But it's just one of those things where, like, this is pretty cool. It's a beautiful day, and you get to experience beautiful things. Now I'm going to transition to the last segment of the show, which is my AMA Day of the Mailbag. So I always ask for questions from friends about things that they want me to answer. And, if I can answer them, I will do my best to answer them. And that's the best way to put that. So we're going to get started. I got a couple questions from my friend, James Auglis. What is the number one thing you would change completely or slightly alter from your favorite movie or film franchise to make it more enjoyable for you? So this is such a weird question because, God, like I always think that like movies are pretty holistically great the way they are. I do think so. One of my favorite movies of all time is Back to the Future. I think it'd be really funny if someone point blankly told Marty McFly, like maybe Doc Brown was that like, be like, hey, your mom's trying to fuck you. I think that'd be pretty fun. It might just be a little fun, dumb joke. It might be a little bit too blatant, but I don't know. It's one of those things that gives me enjoyment in the thought of that. And I don't know. It's one of those like tricky questions. Like I don't want to say like Star Wars, like Luke and Leia never learn that their brother and sister or something. That'd be dumb, you know? Like, I don't know. I think that like it might be fun to have it be like something very obvious, like in Back to the Future, like, hey, your mom's attracted to you. My friend Brandon Scott Hughes asks, do you believe in time travel? If so, would you do it? Where would you go? If not, why? All right, so I do not believe in time travel. I believe in a lot of things. I actually believe in ghosts. I believe in aliens. I believe in Bigfoot to a certain extent. I do not believe in time travel. I wish it was real. I think it does. It's just too. There's too many holes in every time travel movie that my brain and time travel theory that like it doesn't make sense for it to be real, like to be a possibility of something real. That's the easiest way to put that. Like it's just like every time that there's a time travel movie, there was always at least some kind of hole. And that's a real thing for me. Like it's just like I don't know. I want to believe in time travel, but I don't. James Ogles asks another question: who do you dislike but still admire the work of in the film industry? This is such a painful question for me because if you know me for years, you would know that for a long time I would still watch the work of Woody Allen. I watched all of his movies until I saw Wonder Wheel, where I actually walked out of because I just didn't like it, and also it was like kind of over the fact of being like, oh, his art is still great. But he is not, and he is not a great person. He's a bad person. But what sucks is though, like Annie Hall is literally one of my favorite romantic comedies of all time. I also love Take the Money and Run. I haven't watched those movies in years, but like my memories of those movies are good, even though I can't stand Woody Allen right now. Like I think he's a horrible person. You don't do what he did. I would almost say Mel Gibson also, but some of his more recent things I don't enjoy. Granted, the last thing of his I actually saw was Apocalypto, which I did like more than I probably should have, but that's what that is. But yeah. Tom Fratz asks, how many eggs could you eat in a single setting and how would you cook them? I've never actually tested this. I think I love my eggs scrambled. I've always loved my eggs scrambled. I will always love my eggs scrambled. Just the way I am. I like scrambled eggs. But I do like eggs in all ways. The most eggs I've ever had at a time is 4. But I felt like I could have done more. So I'm going to say like 5 or 6. That feels like it might be a lot. But I'm also a big dude. And I like eggs. And they're pretty easy on my stomach. And scrambled eggs are fucking delicious. Our last question today is from my friend James Ogles again. Asks, if you could augment one part of your body, always work at peak performance, what would it be? It's the brain. I love my brain. I think it's fucking awesome. Also my eyes. For those that don't know, I had a really dumb injury when I was working at Trader Joe's, where this eye is not the best now. That's the best way to put that. And that's part of the reason my glasses are what they are. But maybe it would help repair that vision back to where it was beforehand. But I also like my glasses, so I would definitely keep my glasses. I think I look fucking cool. I got a good look that works for me. But definitely, I want to think that I want my brain to be working at optimal speed. I mean, I'm a smart guy. I have 3 undergraduate diplomas. Very smart. All theater, but I got my education in. And that's an important thing to me. All right, so catching up for the rest of the week. Tomorrow, I believe, we should be doing, we'll be doing Marker Meets World. We'll be returning this week. Returned this past week. Episode 17, The Fugitive, just aired. And Rachel Nielsen will be joining me to discuss season 1, episode 18. It's a wonderful night. I'm very excited to talk about that. But on Wednesday, we have a different time slot because I've got, I guess, why am I all blurry? There we go. My guest is Karishma Patel from Survivor Island of the Idols. I freaking love her. First Indian female to play Survivor in America. Really awesome player, really good person. She actually gave me some feedback when I was getting ready to play my first sequester game. She played sequester really well. But we'll be at 8 p.m. Eastern time on that episode. And Friday, we are back with our Brant Steel Day. I've got to ask Lane if she wants to be on that. But yeah, let me know if you guys want to be in that episode. It's going to be fun. Also, letting you guys know, if you know that I love Survivor, it's now on Netflix, 2 of the seasons. One of them is the season I always recommended people to watch, which is Cagayan. If they want to get back into the show, dive in. It's a great season. Also, Heroes vs. Villains is great too, in my personal opinion. And I mean, those are 2 of the best seasons out there. So, yeah, that's a real fact. But also, you can tweet at me at MarkLevy85. Follow me. And I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And, of course, wear a fucking